All right, what's going on? I haven't made a video in a while. It's not because of a lack of motivation or anything like that. It is because my computer does not do microphones well for some reason now. I don't know whether this is a driver issue or a hardware issue or what exactly. But I am borrowing somebody's computer to make this one because it's a big day. It's a big important event. The Stambler Open Spring 2024 has concluded, and with it we have the results, we have the lists, um, and I wanted to make a video on it, and so I am doing that now. I do hope to buy another computer at some point in the next few months, and then I will go back to making videos on a more consistent basis. But excuse me. But until then, I guess it'll just be this one. Anyways, that's way too much information. Um, so the Stambler Open concluded yesterday. Well, I mean, it occurred yesterday, and of course, it also concluded yesterday. What's the shift tree list? Okay, so fairly normal. Getting distracted. So we had 41 players, and it was a pretty stacked event. And I ended up getting top four. So because I topped, I will go through my own results, and then I'll do some of my thoughts on the top decks and also the meta at large. So let's see here. So yeah, I went 6-0 in Swiss. It was 6 rounds of Swiss. I was able to take out Hibiki on Nita Queen, Canton on Bomb Champ, Tord on Railer, Q on Metagross Swampert, Christmas aka Embio on Ratlock, Jason on Ryegs, Q again on Metagross Swampert, and then finally losing to Hopkins on Gardevoir. So I'll just kind of go over my run. Hopefully, I don't take too long on this. I played against Hibiki, who was on a fairly standard Nita Queen list. They did opt to play the Nita Queen Delta, and I think that's a good inclusion. I think it's usually worth it, especially if you are playing if you are playing the retriever. Also, they opt for a Holland engine. You don't typically see this in Nita Queen lists, but interesting choice. Double boost energy is also very peculiar. The Doug Trio is kind of cool. Um, I would say it's not as useful in this deck, and a lot of decks that you play Doug Trio in, it uh comes up as a like fighting attacker that can one shot Tyranitar, and also just generally speaking, be annoying against fighting weak things. But of course, need a queen. That's not as important. Um, yeah, definitely interesting list. So against Hibiki, I don't think that they knew the matchup super well. It took me a long time to get started. I couldn't get to Pidgeot. I prized Jirachi. I prized Jirachi like I think 4 out of these 6 rounds, and this was definitely one of them because I could not get set up, and I had to like stall with Murkrow and Pidgeotto, and eventually I got a Pidgeot going, and that was able to let me get into the game and start getting my Ratlock going. But overall, once I got the Pidgeot going, I was able to POW a bunch of stuff onto his Pidgeot, and he ran out of Brinies and Versus Seekers, and then I was able to take it from there. So I felt pretty good going into round two, and then I saw it play against Canton, and I've never beat Canton in tournament, and I almost always lose to him in friendlies, and uh, I don't know if I would say I was nervous, but I was definitely like, okay, this is my chance to finally take him out. For my money, I think he's the best RS to PK player. I just think he has the best like ideas, and his approach to the game is very novel. He did not do very well this event, but RS to PK is so difficult to um, to do well in. I believe that the only players that have gone positive at every Stambler are Toward, Little River, and myself, if I'm not mistaken. So it's difficult to just, I mean, even go positive in these events sometimes. But Canton was playing this pretty insane bomb champ list. 313 is a very brave Machamp line. Of course, he is playing the Retriever. Also, he's playing like stuff to be immune to EX guys, and I don't even particularly know what the goal is with some of this stuff, but but yeah, very impressed by his list. It's just looking at it, it's just like insane. It's like I don't know where he came up with some of this stuff. It'd be interesting to see if he posts about it. But in our game, it was a matter of he was able to get the bomb off before I got Pidgeot off, and that's always a bit scary. Or sorry, before I got Sceptile up, that's always a bit scary. However, Bomb Champ can't really like start to dominate the board the same way that Bomb Tower can. They can't one shot Sceptile as easily. Actually, he probably can. He probably can. He plays Reacts and Solid Rage. Um, but uh, after that, it was a matter of I had to try to not put anything super like committal onto the board, and I had to like take prizes but not take too many prizes, and it eventually came down to and I, of course he plays Fire Mew, so I can't just set up a Sceptile and win the game. And eventually it came down to I was able to use Wobbuffet with a Scramble Energy attached to grind and KO his powered up Machamp, and then he didn't have a way to copy with Mew to KO me because he can just do like 10 or 20 damage. And then from there, I was able to put him in a checkmate situation where I had a powered up Sceptile EX on the bench. And if he copied, then he lost. And if he switched out to anything, he lost because Sceptile would one shot anything. So this one was pretty wild. I was debating. Well, I'll talk about my list later. But I was debating if I should include Scramble or not, and I talked to Jason before the tournament, and he said like, yeah, I think it has utility, and so I went ahead and did that. But yeah, so that was my Canton match. Scramble saved me. It let me attack with Wobbuffet in a position where I, because the Machamp had what's it called? Had 50 HP left, so otherwise I have to rely on a coin flip and with quick attack, and never want to do that. Speaking of relying on a coin flip with a quick attack, I'll talk about Tord's list later because he topped. But I played Tord, and I had a pretty good open for this one. He opened Stantler plus Cess, which is a pretty good open for him, but it seemed like he did not hit the push away for a couple turns. I think he was had no energy, and he also didn't bench anything. And so I got Murkrow going, and I had a Raticate in play. And so I felt pretty good because it was like, okay, well, I don't have Pidgeot. I had Pidgey, and I think I had a Pidgeot in hand. I just didn't have the candy. And I was like, okay, I've got my, like, this is a fine position to be in. And I got Murkrow with 2 energy, and I plundered his Stantler. And um, he just attached an energy and pushed away, I think. And he didn't bench anything else. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take my chance. And so I retreated to Eradicate. And honestly, like, even if I whiffed, it wasn't that big of a deal because the only thing I would pick up was the energy from retreating and then, like, I don't know, maybe like an admin or something. And so, or cheat Trat and quick attack, and I got heads and I KO'd the Stantler. And so I took out Tord. This was Tord's only loss was to Eradicate donking him. Um, I think that Jason said that Tord did not know that Eradicate did 50 damage, so that's probably not something he would have done if he realized that. But yeah, it was my shortest game for sure. Then I played against Q on Metagross Swampert. So this is a really cool deck, and he has a pretty novel approach to it that I'll go through later. But suffice to say that I don't think Rat is its best matchup. This game was very interesting where I prized Stantler, which was annoying because what he did was he got a Metagross EX powered up, and he just kept putting more and more and more and more energy on it so that once I started powing, I couldn't really, like, it would take a lot of pals before it couldn't attack anymore. And so I saw what he was doing, and I was like, okay, well, if I had Stantler, it would be nice because I could at least push things away. And then I was like, okay, well, let me just try quick attacking with Eradicate and get this thing to a low enough HP so that I could just KO it, with Sceptile or with something. I couldn't KO it with Sceptile because he had Fire Mew, but I kept getting tails on quick attack. I got like 7 or 8 tails in a row, and so I didn't do too much meaningful damage. I did confuse it with Espeon, but over time, just couldn't really get anything super useful done. And he kept hitting heads on the confusion, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. But eventually, I was able to get everything PAL locked. I don't think that his Mew copying pickup came up a huge amount in this game, but it kind of blurs together because I played so many games against him. But yeah, so I took that game, and so then at that position, I was like, okay. Oh yeah, so going into it, I was like, towards either playing LBS or he's playing regular. This was closed lists, so I was like, all right, well, either of those, like LBS, I'm definitely gonna win. Regular, I'm probably gonna win. So I felt fine going into Tord. Going into Q, I thought he was on Cradily, in which case I felt fine, but then he was on this, and I still felt fine. Then I played against Christmas, aka MBO, um, and this was a wild one because his rat plays um, Electrode EX. I know I said I was gonna wait on the list, but I'm just gonna show you this because this looks like a shit post. Like, what is going on here, dude? Like, this is insane. Sceptile EX, Electrode EX, Espeon Star, Mime EX. Like, no shot. No shot. Um, so yeah, that was an insane list. And so going into it, I was like, all right, well, I feel pretty good, like in general against other Ratlocks, just as a player. Like I'm the best player of this deck, and I feel pretty comfortable, especially in these, like, stall v stall matchups. And but I was like, okay, well, if he gets Electro DX off, then I mean, I might just lose. And you might think, oh, well, just set up Sceptile EX, same that you would against Bombtar or something. But you can't really do that either, because if he gets Murkrow out and he gets Wobbuffet up, which are trivial things to do, and I set up Sceptile, then he can Night Song Sceptile, and then say, okay, well, you Warp Energy. All right, well, I'll Warp Energy, and then once I Warp Energy, he can just bring it up again with Night Song. And then you say, okay, well, you attach and you retreat, and then you pick up the Warp Energy. But if I do that enough times, I'm going to stay sleeping enough times that I can't retreat that second time. And he can go into Pidgey and he can corner the Sceptile. And then I'm in a position where, he would do this if he had, more cards in rotation. And so then I'm in a position where I can't really um I can't really do anything. Like I've got Sceptile stuck inactive. If I KO the Pidgey, that turns on his POW, and if I don't KO the Pidgey, then I get decked out. And so I saw all of this as like a possibility, and I said, all right, well, there is a non-negligible chance that he prized one of his Voltorb or his Electrode. And as it turns out, he did. And he also prized Espeon. And so I got extremely lucky on his prizes because I was able to use my Espeon in conjunction with my unknown to KO the unknown, like KO my own unknown. And with that, I was able to get PAL turned on, and I was just in a position where, like, I think he had already kind of been going through his brinies and his warp energies at that point. And so then with the PALs, and I was just piling all the energy onto his Sceptile that he set up, which I think maybe was a mistake. But either way, I got in a position where I had PAL access. He still didn't have Electro DX access, and I took the game from there. So then going into round six, I knew I was going to be playing against Jason. We were the only two 5-0s at that point. Um, and he was on Ryegs. I don't even think I knew what deck he was on. I think I assumed he was on Scrambled Eggs, but he was on another flavor of egg. He was on Ryegs. Um, and so going in, I was like, okay, I lost a couple of games and friendlies to him recently, and I was thinking, okay, well, that was he knows the matchup pretty well, but I don't think his list plays Warp Energy, which is pretty big. And I just had a pretty good feeling about this one. Of course, this game also didn't matter. We were both guaranteed on the top cut. Um, but I was like, okay, I still want to win. I still want to beat Jason. Um, so he gets a pretty good start from what I recall, and he just kind of gets the ball rolling quickly, and it took me a while to get set up. I think I prized Hirachi this game, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and over time, I was concerned about like, okay, when do I want to go in with Sceptile? Because I clearly am not able to lock him. Like I just don't have enough resources. I'm pretty sure I also prized. Did I prize Wobbuffet here? I can't remember. I don't remember if I prized Wob or not. But either way, I was just thinking like I don't think I can lock him. But I did get Crystal Beach up. I got Sceptile EX powered up, and I had a bunch of pals, and I piled a bunch of his energy onto his Raichu and KO'd it with Power Revenge. And at this point, he had two prizes left, and I was like, okay. And I admined him to a low hand size. I admined him to two, and I was like, okay, I feel pretty good. I feel like Sceptile, it's hard for Sceptile to take six prizes against Ryegs just because Raichu can just do so much damage to it. But I was like, okay, well, I took out a bunch of energy. I took out one of his Raichu, and that means that there's a chance now. And I keep admining him. He keeps top decking Transceiver or Scientist or Stevens or something. And I just keep admining him. And eventually I just power revenge a bunch of times, and he runs out of attackers, and I take my 6 prizes with Sceptile EX. And this was kind of insane. This almost never happens where Sceptile just goes on a rampage against Ryeg specifically, but he just didn't have enough energy. He didn't have enough like Pokemon in play to threaten me with what's it called, Delta Circle into Metallic Thunder. He just, because I kept on adminning him and his draws were not fantastic after, even after you got bailed out by Scientist. He wasn't able to take out the Sceptile. And this really shows like the power of Ratlock, where it gets to these like weird positions where your opponent's so scared of being locked down, and they play around that so much that they end up falling to Sceptile EX plus pals. Because you got to think, Sceptile, being able to use POW and do 100 damage, 110 damage to everything is not too far off from like the Bomb Champ or Bomb Tar or Bomb Caddy end game. And those are all good decks. I mean, great decks even. And so the fact that you can just switch to doing that in Ratlock really gives it a lot of offensive prowess. And it came up against against several of my games actually, against Jason, against my Q and Top Cut, against Kenton, um, and against Hopkins. So going into Top Cut, I saw I had to play against Q again. I felt pretty good about this matchup. Metagross Swampert. The first game, I was able to lock him, and I think that I did not prize anything too relevant, and it was fairly straightforward. He was playing it better though, because he was using Mew to copy things. And then the second game in the best of three, I used Unknown E at like a super critical moment where I basically had nothing else. Like, I was basically out of gas. Like, everything. It's so hard to like deny that last prize sometimes, and so I like delayed it for as long as I could with like Pidgeot. And I was like, okay, he's out of transceivers. I'm pretty sure he's out of admins. Like, I just want to wait. And then Unknown E, and I got something onto the bench, and then he couldn't retreat at that turn, and then I was able to just get get to a point where I wasn't worried about the last KO, and I took the game from there. Um, Maybe I'm confusing the games. I'm sorry. I played so many games against Q, and they were all so long. But I did beat Q, and then against Hopkins, he is playing my list with one change. His Gardevoir. This is a terrible matchup, and Hopkins is a great player. And the list that he was on was like specifically designed to take out these POW decks, especially Ratlock. Um, and he played it well. In game one, I prized Giant Stump, which was very unfortunate because there's just situations where if I was able to, wait 1 second, hold on, hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Hopkins, yeah. So his list, I was like, okay, this is gonna be hard. I prized the Giant Stump game one, which he had a bunch of like energy on his bench, and he had a bunch of good things on his bench. Like he had two uh, of the energy move Gardevoir. He had the Pidgeot and he had Mew, and I was like, okay, maybe if I had Giant Stump, I could eliminate some of these and get something going. So the usual strategy with this deck is against Gardevoir is you want to Giant Stump them or Crystal Beach them and then admin them, or like after you do this big play, you admin them, and you want to POW all of the energy onto like preferably a Gardevoir EX or a Curlia, and then Power Revenge that Curlia or that Gardevoir, and then they kind of run out of energy, and then you can either power revenge, like power something else up and power revenge that, or just retreat back to eradicate and start picking up pals so that you can do another play like this if they aren't able to take the revenge KO. And so I tried to do that, but he just had, and I even locked Crystal Beach in play. He went through all of his windstorms, and I tried to do that strategy, but he just had too much energy. He had too many Gardevoir Delta in play to move the energy around, and uh, the Sceptile got KO'd. And once Sceptile goes down, I mean, it's, it's practically over. So, and then game two, I had a pretty rough start, and then I got into a position where I thought that Sceptile could KO Gardevoir, but he had only taken one prize, and so I just did 140, and I was like, all right, well, I already probably wasn't winning this, but now there's just no shot, and so I conceded. I was like, you know what, this tournament's going on late. There's no reason for me to extend this another 15 or 20 minutes. Um, so that was my run. I'm very happy with the list. I wish I could have won, but I went further than last time. Last time I got top eight. This time I got top four. And I'm glad I was able to take out Canton as well as Tord and Jason, but especially Canton. Um, and so yeah, now I just want to kind of go over the top eight lists. So at eight we have Q. Um, And I realized recently you can open this as an image. Let's see how this goes. Um, oh, very interesting. I haven't actually looked at these lists in detail yet, so this is a bit of some of them at least. So if you're not familiar with what this deck does, because it is somewhat new, um, you are attempting to get a bunch of metal and rainbow energies into the discard pile, and then with the like the Holland engine and with the Delcatty, and then use Swampert to energy recycle and put them all back onto Metagross or onto Swampert when you need to. Um, so the logic is metal energies are good and they're good to tank with, and Swampert is good at getting them back. And Swampert's like a pretty good complement to these metal attackers because um, it deals with Arcanine really well and it deals with fire attackers really well with because it's not a bad attacker in its own right. Um, and past that, some players play Pidgeot in this. Some players play the Fighting Swampert as an additional attacker, and it also draws a card. Um, Q is playing the a 2-1-2 line of Metagross, and also playing a Metagross EX rather, and also playing a Metagross Delta as both the backup attacker and as a draw um, consistency card. Also on the Mag Cargo, which combos well with Metagross because you can put the whatever you want to the top of the deck and then Delta control and basically draw into it. He's also playing Delcatty to synergize with Mag Cargo, where you put whatever you want on the top of the deck, energy draw for it. Um, and then Fire Mew as a way to deal with Sceptile EX. You might say, well, how is he getting the Sceptile EX active? He's playing triple POW. Um, and I like this list quite a bit. I think 4 admin is actually pretty useful in this. I usually don't like it in these stage 2 heavy decks, but just the extra disruption with Metagross and the fact that you can draw into like everything with your Mag Cargo, your Delcatty, your Metagross EX, your Metagross Delta, um, definitely makes it worthwhile. What else here? Opting for no scientist and 2 adventure. I'm not too sure if I would agree with that. Um, what else do we got? I think the 3 POW is really cool. I think you could probably go down to 2 and still have it be good, but not for sure. Swoop is awesome. I think this is like a sick play, sick tech that enables a bunch of lines where you've got energy on, like you got like 2 energy on something for whatever reason, and then you just swoop it out, rare candy into Metagross or into Swampert, and then take some initiative. And it plays like the Jirachis, so you could conceivably be swooping into those. Island Cave is a sick deck. I always like that in these Delta attacker decks, where it just gives you an out to Stantler. Um, and then the high warp energy count, the double cyclone for Cess decks, and for Scan Blast shenanigans, kind of rounded out. So really cool list, really cool deck, and I'm glad that Q was able to get to top 8 with it. Q did run into probably one of its worst matchups in Rat, so that's how it goes. Um, so congratulations to Q. Whoops, for making it here again. The Stambler Open January 13th runner up. Then we have the man. We got the man. You already know who it is. You already know what this is. You already know we got ID 23 on ID 23. I don't even know what you would call this deck. Like, this is just insane. I love that he got top 8, man. Who did he beat? Who did my man ID pummel? Pretty sure, yeah, he beat Little River. All right, I mean, this is like, this is just insane. Okay, so, whoops, where's the this deck list? What is image? Okay. So, if you've never seen this deck before, it's because the only way that you would possibly see it is if you happen to play against ID 23 on TCG1. So, from what I can gather, the general strategy of this list is that Shuppet, this guy right here, can discard energy really effectively. He's got like a Kindle type attack. Except it's a worse Kindle because I think your opponent chooses the energy they discard. So, okay, you've got worse Numel, but he combos it with Power Tree. So he is able to recur that energy pretty well. And then after that, he's got access to that same attack with Meteor Falls. And you might think, okay, well, that's all well and good, but where does the other cards come into play? Well, Bayonet EX is generally just good. I mean, it does big damage. Shady Move is cracked, yada, yada, yada. Bayonet from Hidden Legends does big damage for just one energy if your opponent has a bunch of special energy cards, and many decks in this format play several. Um, and then the Crystal Guardians Bayonet is immune to EX attackers. So you've got this suite of bayonets that all kind of deal with different things. And of course, the Shuppet, which also deals with something different in that it discards energy effectively. The 2-2 Porygon, I'm going to be real, I have no idea what this is doing or why he's playing it in multiples. If it were me, I'd slim down to 1-1 and then throw in like a 1-1 Mag Cargo or something. But I'm not the GOAT ID 23, so what do I know? Also, I just realized he's playing 3 Mentor and no Transceiver. Um, oh, when you're this good, I guess you just hard draw the Mentor. You don't need Transceiver. Um, God, the more I look at this list, what is Fluffy Berry? Like, I guess, sure. Why not? Why not? Why not? It's ID 23. What's the Minun doing? It's so that you can POW lock out of nowhere, obviously. Also, okay, Espeon. Espeon is honestly kind of annoying to deal with in multiples. Most of the time, like, if you're playing against an Evolutions deck, I mean, you should just be winning because those decks are not good. But, like, when you play against one and they hit you with Espeon, you're just kind of like, rats, you know. That was annoying, but anyways, back to winning. But when you get hit with like 2 or 3, it's like, oh, well, this is like actually pretty disruptive. Um, and Espeon hits pretty good damage, and you can snap tail and set up KOs on things. So that's pretty cool. And he plays 6, 9, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19 supporters. Um, so he's going to be powering up that Bayonet every time. And yeah, that's the That's the ID 23. Zero windstorm. You don't need it. Just KO the Seth guy. Um, yeah, I mean, what else can you say? ID 23, the GOAT himself. Who did he lose to in finals? Lost to Tord. Very honorable loss. Gotta say, in a world where ID took out Tord, that would be a world that I want to live in. But unfortunately, we have this world. Then we have Christmas, aka MBO, Mbio, however you pronounce this boy's name. This is my boy. I should probably know how to pronounce his name, but whatever. He was able to get to top 8, taking out Tyrannosaur on, I think, Walrein, Holy Star on Railer, Liam Williams on Sceptile, Iage on Gardevoir before beat Gardevoir. That's right. That's insane. These are both pretty crazy wins. I gotta be real. Guard and Sceptile are not easy. And then he fell to me and Hopkins, and then Jason and Topcoat. So this list is insane. This does not look like a list that should be getting top 8 in a tournament. So the Trody X is to give him extra leverage against other lock decks. It's basically like, all right, I'm going to take a prize, and I'm not going to mess around with Espeon to confuse my guys. No, I'm going to take this prize. You're going down with me, and excuse me, and I don't think he can attack with. Yeah, he can't attack with Electrode, so he can't even do that. But it's like, all right, well, I'm going to take out my own Electrode, and then I'm gonna padlock you. So an interesting way to go about it. Also, it does power up Sceptile pretty quickly. Well, you have to have it as Grovyle or Trico, but it powers them up, and that can be pretty good because then all of a sudden, Sceptile is doing 80 damage, and you do have power access. So that in itself is pretty disruptive. Now that I think about it, um, and you can also you can't power up mime. And I can't remember what he opted not to play. He's definitely not playing Solid Rage, um, because you don't really need it. I can't remember what other card that he cut. Oh, he cut the Magnemite. Yeah, he cut Magnemite. So he cut Magnemite and Rage. The logic is pretty simple. Like, you don't really need Rage because you have greater access to Sceptile, and you have Scramble for Pidgeot to clutch things. And you don't really need the Magnemite because that's not something you can get back with Electrode. Still, you do want it for early game mentor, but oh well. I mean, he got top 8, so yeah. This is a pretty insane list. I definitely want to mess around with some ideas here more. He's also playing the Mr. Crime for Dragonite Delta, which I think one person brought from Mutrick, which I think 0 people brought. 0 people have played Mutrick at the Stambler Open. Um, I think it's like we're up to like I don't know 130 like people that have brought decks. Not individual people, but you know what I mean. 130 people have registered a deck, and I'm pretty sure 0 of those have been Mutrick. So, but it also helps for I thought Mysterious Player would be bringing Kingdra, and I was like, all right, well I'm bringing Mr. Crime, and I told Inbio I was bringing Mr. Crime kind of for that reason because it just Kingdra just can't attack him. Um, and then Mysterious Player didn't even bring it. So, but he said that this came up in his game against Liam Williams, where Liam could not KO Mr. Mime because it like was just like I think Sceptile EX couldn't hit it. You can't KO it with Latios. Like he could not, and you can't KO it with Regirock. Regirock can't hit it. So excuse me. So yeah, um, That's MBO's list. He ended up losing to Jason in top eight, and from what I gathered, these were pretty close games. Um, but just couldn't close it out. And obviously Jason's Jason, and he's playing a deck that is not bad against Rat. So that's Mbios, and then we have Liam Williams on Septile. He had a nice run in Swiss, going 5-1, only losing to Mbio on Ratlock. Um, his list, I like this list quite a bit. He said it was pretty reminiscent of Canton's. The Septile lineup is the same, except I think he said he should have played the Delta Grove, which I agree with. And he's playing a 2-1-3 Pidgeot, not 204 because he's playing Jirachi Hidden Legends. Excuse me. And otherwise, pretty straightforward. He's playing the heavy cast form. The one Holland's Voltorb, I would play Magnemite, but potatoes, potatoes. And he's playing the Regirock also as the tech attacker, which makes sense. Fighting is just so good, and this deck doesn't struggle with Bomb Tower per se, but being able to have a guy that can just, you know, kill them is nice. And then past that, um, two Stevens, you always want to fit this into these kinds of decks. The Brinies and the Versus Seeker, along with Energy Trans, is very useful. Uh, it kind of conflicts with the fact that your three big attackers are all EXs, but what can you do? Um, I really like Sceptile as a deck. I think it just has so many routes that it can go down. Sceptile EX, Delta is just broken. It just shuts down so many things. And you get to play a bunch of weird cards like uh, Latios Star, and Camerupt. And you just have this big soup of things that can attack and a bunch of ways that you can win. And I love those kinds of decks. He's also playing. What are some other interesting things here? Only two Retriever. I know Camden's list plays four. I think I slimmed that down to three and felt fine. But pretty big cut there. You definitely. I'm sure that. I don't know if you missed this, but I would wager that this came up in some capacity. The swoop is pretty cool. A lot of times you find yourself like, all right, I opened cast form, or I opened Jirachi, or I opened Voltorb, and I just want to get these things out after they've done what I needed to do. And so swoop seems pretty nice. Warp point along with the warp energy to hopefully not get locked. The POW I think is essential, and very 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 slim energy count here, but you get energy back with Camerupt, cast form, access energy. Um, so you shouldn't really be losing energy too often. Like just because you can move it around so much and guarantee that you don't. Um, and Yeah, very cool list. I think this versus Cantons, I like the Jirachi inclusion, the Jirachi Hidden Legends inclusion, and I like the Regirock. Um, and the warp energy I think is for sure essential. I'm not as sold on. I can see one Brinies, but I think the Versus Seeker might be a little excessive. Um, and I think cutting. I would go up to three Retriever. It's just nice to have three in case one gets pushed away. Um, but very cool list. Great run from Liam. I think he lost in top eight to Hopkins on Gardevoir. Yeah. Sceptile is like the one stage two deck that can sometimes beat guard. I know that like between Latios and Sceptile, you sometimes have counterplay. I don't know how those games went. I'll have to ask Hopkins, but yeah, great run by Liam on a great deck. And then moving into top four, we have Jason on Ryags. If I remember right, this is like a pretty no nonsense list. Let's just see. Yeah, very much no nonsense. Plays 4-3 of both of the attackers, along with double retriever. This is pretty common these days where you just want to either researcher for one of these guys or hard draw into one of these guys, like the eggs or the Raichu. Um, Playing the four Holland's Castron, of course. Playing double Magnemite, which is you can get away with that with the swoop teleporter. A lot of people opt for two, but I think one is probably fine. Past that, he's playing the Holland engine um, with the Stevens, two Stevens. No Castaway. I think some of the Ryegg's list play Castaway. No Tex. Only opts for the quad Curse Stone. No Desert Ruins. Nothing. No unknown E plus POW. No unknown E plus Hideout. No no Cloister. No ATM Rock. Um, Really just no warp energy. The only thing is that like a 3 DRE it came up in his tour match. He was telling me where he prized the last DRE, and if he had one more, maybe could have done something. And then 3 metal I think is somewhat uncommon, but yeah, whatever. How many energies is this? 10, 12, 12, and then yeah, it's a lot of energy either way. Um, but yeah, very much a no nonsense list. Jason has been playing this list a lot, from what I gather, and he's very strong with it. Only went down to Tord at the end, prized his DRE, and I think the next game he just opened bad and Tord donked him effectively. But great run by Jason, getting top four finally. He kind of underperformed at the other two stamblers, but this time he was able to secure not only top eight but top four. So congratulations to Jason. This is definitely the crowning achievement of his Pokemon TCG career. Then me on Rat, I already talked a lot, but I'll briefly go through my list. Uh, I played so at the first Stambler Open, I played Mime and I played four Psychic, no Scramble. At the second one, I played Scramble and I played Solid Rage over Mime. And this time, I was thinking, okay, if I like the Scramble Rage thing is basically only good against Drag Trode. Like that's like the main thing it's used for, and that's like 1.5 slots. Like the energy gonna go either way, but that's like 1.5 slots for one matchup. And I was like, okay, maybe I can just go down, assume I probably won't play Drag Trode, but if I do, I'll have Scramble plus Clutch, and I can maybe get something done that way. Um, what was I saying? And so I was like, okay, I can go down on that, play Mr. Crime, and because he helps with a lot of stuff. I thought Mysterious Player might be on Kingdra. I thought like there's at least a couple people that I was pretty sure were going to be playing Dragonite EX if they entered. Um, I knew that Jay was entering, and I thought he might play Arcanine. And also, I just thought somebody might play Arcanine, and so I opted for the Mime, which did not come up at all. Mr. Crime did not hit play a single time. But neither would Solid Rage. Solid Rage would not have won me any of my games, and Scramble did win me at least one of my games. So, um, yeah. So that's my list. I already talked about my games, so I'll just move right along. Hopkins, second place. Um, Hopkins is playing my Gardevoir list with one change. He is playing Ray EX over Mr. Crime. This is the other Mr. Crime, the odds Mr. Crime. And the reason why I played that in this deck is because he helps out a lot against Baynet, where if Baynet gets fully charged, then they they can't actually damage Mime with Baynet. And they can get around that. They can play transceiver and get Holland supporters back. But at a certain point, they're just going to be like in a position where they can't play any more supporters, or they can't. or like or if they do, then they're gonna have to find some way to take out mime. And you also have game against the deck. Gardevoir, Delta can KO Bayonet, Mew can KO Bayonet, etc. etc. And it also comes up against decks that play Ray EX because Ray EX can't touch Mime. And you have a bunch of ways of powering it up. But he opted for Ray EX. He was not sold on Mime. And maybe he came back to bite him a little bit because he lost a Tord. But Ray EX seemed pretty useful. It's definitely more useful in the other matchups. Um, but yeah, he played a pretty stellar tournament, I gotta say. So this list, since it is very close to mine, I'll briefly talk about it. I think that you should be playing two psychic Ralts for sure, for sure, for sure. Um, two psychic Ralts with the two psychic energy means that you basically should not be losing to scrambled eggs most of the time, as long as you're able to establish one. Because then like there you could say, oh well, they can just pal the psychic Ralts up and KO that. Okay, yeah, but then they're wasting all of that resource. Like they're wasting a pal, and you know you have other things you're setting up. If you're setting up a Pidgeot, you're setting up another, like a Gardevoir. Um, there's a lot of things that you could be setting up that is not just Ralts. And then if you set up another Ralts, you can just KO them. So, um, what else? What else? What else? So then, other than that, I think that the 4-2-4 is pretty non-controversial. Um, I think the Heal Dance Gardevoir is not worth it. I think it improves matchups that you should already be winning, and it does nothing for matchups that you struggle in, which is most of my philosophy for this deck list. It's why I play Mime over Ray. 204 Pidgeot. You don't want to play Celios in this because Researcher is basically your Celios, and you really just want you have so many ways of getting into Pidgey and so few ways of getting into Pidgeot. I was like, I just want to max my Pidgeot count. I want to Lanets for Jirachi and Pidgey, get Jirachi going, just hard draw into Candy, and then Wishing Star for Pidgeot and get off to the races. If I'm having to play Pidgeotto down, then that's a turn that I don't have Pidgeot. So I'd rather have a Pidgeot turn. So that's why I played this. Also, this deck doesn't like super duper struggle against trainer lock decks. Like as long as you get something resembling a board established, then you've got game for sure. So that was my logic. Um, and I say my logic like it's like it is my list, but I'm sure Hopkins has like a similar idea for why he agrees with these things. Regirock because this deck can struggle against Bombtar, so just having a guy that can either one shot Tyranitar. People would say, oh well, like what if it has the Holland and the Fire attached? Well, then you're doing like 80 damage to it, and if that's the case, then they also have to have Scramble attached. But then if they have all that, then they don't have the Darkness energies to one shot Gardevoir EX. So then it's like, and then if either way, they have to pal something up to KO it. And if they're palling up Regirock, but Regirock doesn't have any energy because you just got it attached to something else and you can energy jump it, then you can just energy jump your energy on the Gardevoir EX and then Flame Ball and then do 80 and then you're going to KO them and then yada yada yada. So it gives Bombtar one more thing to be worried about, basically. Ray EX is useful. Just I mean, it's Ray EX. It's going to be useful in a lot of games. Mewstar is crazy against Railer and against any lock deck in general. Being able to and it can just copy any attack in the game just so easily in this deck, and you can get it powered up very easily in this deck. So you can get 3 energy on it out of nowhere very commonly, and that's just really big. So and then other than that, 3 admin, 4 is cringe. the two mentor, one Lynette. Um, I have been doing this for months now, and I think Lynette has bit me a single time where I like wanted to Lynette. Like it'll come up often where you're like, okay, well it's late game. I kind of wish I could thin my deck by like getting these two fire rolls, but I can't. So that comes up, but the only time it's really hurt me has been like, okay, well I really needed to get, Jirachi and a Holland's Magnemite or whatever, but it's extremely uncommon. What is common is that you don't want to discard anything in your hand. Gardevoir does not play many cards that you want to discard. You might want to discard like Regirock in a matchup where you don't need it, or like a Pidgeot after you've established one. But a lot of the times you do not want to discard cards with this deck. And so Lynette is great. It's doesn't let you don't have to discard for it. You play two mentors, so you should be able to always transceiver for it. Um, and then other than that, for Candy, of course, for Windstorm, I think is essential. POW, I think is essential. Warp Point, I think is essential. Giant Stump just gives you a lot of options that you can, or a lot of plays that you can make. Can get Gardevoir EX off the bench, can heal things. Does conflict with Black Magic, but that's okay. And then the energy lineup, I feel really comfortable with this. 4 rainbow energy is really good. 3 warp energy means you're not going to get locked by much. 2 psychic for Ralts, being able to use it as an attacker if you need. Also for Mr. Crime if you play that. Um, the metal lets you attack with Jirachi and I guess Magnemite and Gardevoir easier, and it comes up where you want to make Gardevoir a little trickier to KO. And then Cyclone, I think, is just generally good. It helps you against these Cess decks, and you can reuse it with Castform. So yeah, I think this list is obviously really good, and I think Hopkins played spectacularly. He was able to go 5-1 in Swiss, I believe. Yep, took out another Gardevoir, and this list is kind of bad into other Gardevoir lists. I've noticed. Took out Destiny, took out LBS, took out Ratlock. So took out a lot of these like matchups that you should be. This is okay. Yeah, Destiny. Took out a lot of these matchups that should be pretty good for guard. Took out Sceptile, which can be tricky, and then beat me again. Sorry, beat Ratlock again. Beat me in top 4. So great run to Hopkins, and then of course, whoops, we have Tord, the 2-time winner, back to back on Railer. Um, let's see. This list is insane. I was talking to Jason about it last night. He thought this list was horrible. I thought that there were some things that I was questioning, but I like some ideas. The first thing to note is he's playing 2 Mr. Briney's Compassion. Um, Along with the 4 Super Scoop Up, he just, I guess, really did not want anything to get stuck in active, was the primary motivator here. Um, and the 4 Ray EX is also a bit questionable, I think. Um, as well as the 3 Cess. This stadium lineup is also like cursed. No Stevens, opting for 4 Marys, says I expect to always have a big hand, so I just want to always draw 3. Um, what else? What else? What else? Yeah, the stadium's 1 curse stone, 1 giant stump. I guess he's just like, let me just get the curse stone in play. My primary thing is I just want to like, I guess like be on the prize deficit and then use Ray with super scoop up to just like go ballistic. I guess it's less of a like Railer deck and more of a like Rayquaza is going to go ham for this whole game. But I mean, obviously it worked out for him. He lost to me in Swiss, but he beat everything else, including the Hopkins win. It was 2-1, and it was a pretty pretty high stress game for both players, I think, because that matchup really can go either way. I think Mime, if ever a time that Hopkins could have used Mime, it would have been this game, where um, just having something that can like it just pressures railers so much. Where yeah, okay, they can snipe around it. Yeah, okay, they can power something up, but like they are going to eventually come to terms with the fact that they have to deal with the mime in some way. And he's not playing beach, so mime is going to be able to attack easier because you can cast form it. Um, and you might say, okay, well they can just admin themselves and not draw that many cards, so that breakdown doesn't do that much damage. But then they don't have many resources, and then gives you more time to draw into like a windstorm or draw into a Pidgeot or something. So I think Mime would have been useful for this, but what can you say? Tori had an incredible run. The only loss he took was to a deck that like physically cannot lose to it most of the time. So um, yeah, incredible run by Tord. And just generally speaking, I am very glad that we had such a great turnout for this event. Had so many great players here, so many cool lists. I still have not even gone through every single list yet. Like I think, hold on, wanted to find his list. Where is he? Like Tyrannosaur on this Walrein list. um, I mean, there's just so many crazy things going on at this event. Like, what is this? What is this? What is this? Um, but yeah, absolutely great time. I think the next Stambler Open will be sometime in the summer, and I will definitely be there. The next big RS to PK event is going to be Double Rainbow in Japan next month, which I will be at. Um, and I always a great time to be playing this wonderful format, and I hope to see more people at the next one. And I guess that is it for this video. Wow, we hit 1 hour. All right, goodbye.